Some offers are too good to be true. Some come with a price you never expected. And some you should never accept. I never thought a simple dinner invitation could change my life. But that night, everything shifted. Everything I believed about trust, power, and control shattered into something unrecognizable. It all started with a single sentence. "I have a proposal for you." Evelyn, my boss, the woman who ruled the corporate world like a queen, stood in front of my desk. Her gaze was steady, sharp, calculating. People didn't say no to Evelyn. They didn't question her. They just obeyed. But this was different. "A proposal," I repeated, my hands tightening around the pen I had been holding. She smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile that sent a chill down your spine. "Come to dinner tonight. My husband and I would like to discuss something important with you." Dinner? With her husband? My mind raced. I wasn't sure why, but the invitation didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was the way she said it, like she already knew my answer. I should have made an excuse. I should have said no. But instead, I nodded. "All right." And just like that, I stepped onto a path I couldn't turn back from. That evening, I stood outside their house, a towering mansion with floor-to-ceiling windows, glowing under the night sky. It looked expensive, cold, and eerily silent. My stomach twisted with unease. I had met Evelyn's husband, Damien, once at a corporate event. He was charming but distant, the kind of man who observed more than he spoke. But tonight, something about this felt off. I rang the doorbell. Within seconds, the door swung open. Evelyn greeted me with that same unreadable smile. "Come in," she said. As I stepped inside, I was met with an overwhelming sense of control. Everything was perfect, not a single thing out of place. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a stage, as if I had just walked into something carefully planned. "Let me take your coat," Evelyn offered, but before I could react, Damien entered the room. "Welcome," he said, his voice deep, calm, too calm. His gaze lingered on me for a moment longer than necessary. A strange tension filled the air. Something wasn't right. We moved to the dining room where an elegant table was set with expensive silverware and glasses filled with deep red wine. The lighting was low, the atmosphere strangely intimate. We started with small talk, work, business, meaningless words. But the weight of the unspoken hung thick in the air. And then Evelyn leaned forward. Her eyes locked onto mine. "You're a valuable asset," she said smoothly, "and I believe we can help each other." I barely had time to process those words before Damien spoke. "I think it's a good idea," he added, as if they had already discussed it. I swallowed hard. My heart pounded. A good idea? For what? That's when Evelyn made the bold offer. And my world tilted on its axis. The clink of silverware against porcelain was the only sound in the room. I sat at the long dining table, the soft glow of the chandelier casting golden reflections on the deep red wine in my glass. Across from me, Evelyn and Damien sat like a perfectly sculpted power couple, elegant, composed, unreadable. But beneath that polished surface, something felt off. I picked at my food, my appetite disappearing under the weight of their watchful eyes. My mind raced, replaying Evelyn's words from earlier. "You're a valuable asset, and I believe we can help each other." I still didn't know what she meant, but whatever it was, Damien was already on board. He had barely spoken, but his presence was overwhelming. He exuded quiet confidence, the kind that made you second-guess yourself. His gaze was intense, not in a threatening way, but in a way that made it clear he saw everything. Evelyn, on the other hand, was the orchestrator. The way she moved, the way she spoke, it was all deliberate. every word, every glance carefully chosen. I felt like I was being tested, and I had no idea if I was passing or failing. Halfway through dinner, Evelyn set down her glass. "I like people who understand loyalty," she said smoothly. My stomach tightened. Loyalty, that word carried weight. It wasn't a casual remark, it was a message. Damien finally leaned forward, his voice breaking the tension. "You're smart," he said, studying me. "You know how this world works. People who hesitate get left behind." I forced a small smile. "I like to think things through before making decisions." Evelyn chuckled softly. "That's exactly why we like you." "Like me? For what?" My fingers curled around the stem of my glass. Every instinct screamed that this wasn't just about business. Something deeper was at play here. Then Evelyn did something unexpected. She reached across the table and placed her hand over Damien's. A slow, deliberate movement. Not affection. A statement. I swallowed hard. "Opportunities like this don't come often," she continued, her gaze locking onto mine. "But it requires a certain kind of person, someone who isn't afraid to step outside the lines." The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I wasn't just listening to a conversation anymore. I was inside something bigger than me. And then Damien said the words that sent a shiver down my spine. "We know you won't say no." My breath hitched. The certainty in his voice. It wasn't arrogance, it was confidence. Because in their minds, this wasn't a question. It was a decision that had already been made. By them. For me. I pushed my chair back slightly, trying to regain control of my thoughts. "This is a lot to process," I admitted, choosing my words carefully. Evelyn's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Of course, take your time." But the way she said it, smooth, unbothered, told me that time was nothing but an illusion. Because in reality, I had already stepped into their world. And now, they were waiting for me to accept it. The air in the room felt thicker, heavier, as if something invisible had wrapped itself around me. Damien and Evelyn weren't just making me an offer, they were pulling me into something I didn't fully understand. I forced myself to breathe, my fingers tightening around the cool glass of wine in my hand. My heart pounded as I processed their words. "We know you won't say no." It wasn't a question, it wasn't even a request, it was a statement of fact. But why? What exactly were they asking of me? I cleared my throat, forcing my voice to stay steady. "You're talking about an opportunity, but you still haven't told me what it is." Evelyn leaned back in her chair, twirling the stem of her wine glass between her fingers. "You're special," she said. "Different from the others. You're sharp, reliable, and most importantly, you understand discretion." Discretion. That single word carried an unspoken warning. I glanced at Damien, hoping to find some kind of hesitation, some sign that he wasn't completely on board with whatever this was. But he just watched me, unreadable as ever. "You have potential," Damien said finally, "and we want to give you more than just a job, more than just a paycheck." A cold chill ran down my spine. This wasn't about a raise. This wasn't about my career. This was something else, something deeper, something I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of. Evelyn reached into a drawer near the dining room and pulled out a sleek black envelope. She slid it across the table toward me. "Take a look," she said softly. I hesitated before picking it up. The envelope was heavy, expensive to the touch. With slow, cautious movements, I opened it. Inside was a contract. At first glance, it looked like a simple business agreement, formal language, legal terms, numbers that made my stomach flip. But as my eyes scanned the details, the words began to blur together. Because what I was reading didn't feel like a contract. It felt like a commitment, a contract that bound me to them, not just as an employee, as something more. I swallowed hard. What exactly am I signing up for? Evelyn smiled, but it wasn't reassuring. It was the smile of someone who already knew the answer. Power, she said simply. Protection. And a future you can't even imagine. I glanced at Damien again. He nodded once. You don't have to decide now, he said, though his voice carried an edge that made it clear they already considered me theirs. I stared at the contract. My name was already printed at the bottom. All I had to do was sign. A thick silence settled between us. The air felt charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. I knew, deep down, that signing this contract meant stepping into something I couldn't walk away from. I could feel their eyes on me, waiting, watching. Would I say yes? Could I say no? And even if I did, would they really let me leave? Because something told me that once you enter Evelyn and Damien's world, there's no way out. The contract sat in front of me, staring back like a silent predator, waiting to sink its claws into my future. My name was already printed at the bottom, like it had been decided before I even stepped into this house. I could feel Evelyn's eyes on me, her fingers resting lightly on the edge of her wine glass. Damien leaned back, arms crossed, expression unreadable. They weren't just offering me something, they were expecting me to take it. The room felt colder, the air heavier. I should have said no. I wanted to say no. But something in the way they sat there, so calm, so certain, made it clear. They had already anticipated every possible answer. And I wasn't sure if refusing was an option. I swallowed hard, my voice coming out quieter than I intended. What happens if I don't sign? Evelyn tilted her head, amused. Why wouldn't you? I forced a smile, trying to keep my tone light. Because I don't even know what I'd be agreeing to. Damien exhaled through his nose, shaking his head slightly. You're overthinking it. We're offering you security, power, influence, everything you've ever wanted. I frowned. And in return? Evelyn's smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. Loyalty, she said simply. That word again. Discretion, loyalty, commitment. It wasn't a job offer. It was a contract of ownership. And the worst part? I still didn't fully understand what they wanted from me. The silence stretched between us. My pulse pounded in my ears. Then Evelyn stood up, slow, controlled. She walked around the table and stopped behind me, placing a hand on my shoulder. Her fingers were cold, deliberate. You don't have to be afraid, she murmured. I stiffened. Afraid? I hadn't said I was afraid, but she knew. Of course she knew. Damien spoke next, his voice low and firm. You're already part of this, whether you sign or not. A chill ran down my spine. What did that mean? I turned to look at Evelyn, trying to mask the unease tightening my chest. Then why give me a choice? She leaned down slightly, her lips close to my ear. Because it's not about choice. It's about acceptance. The room seemed to shrink around me. My vision blurred at the edges. I wasn't being invited. I was being absorbed. I looked back at the contract. The pen sat beside it, gleaming under the dim light. One signature, one choice, and my life would never be the same. But did I even have a choice? I exhaled slowly, picking up the pen, feeling its weight in my hand. Evelyn and Damien watched, silent, patient. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. This was it, the moment before the fall. I lowered the pen to the paper, and then a sound, a sharp, deliberate knock at the door. Evelyn's expression changed instantly. The warmth, the control, all of it, gone. Damien's jaw tightened. His hand moved under the table, reaching for something. Everything inside me screamed, something is very, very wrong. And for the first time since I walked into this house, I realized I might not be able to leave. The knock at the door sent a chill through my body. Sharp, deliberate, uninvited. Evelyn's entire demeanor shifted. The smooth confidence, the effortless control. It cracked. Her fingers tightened against my shoulder, and I felt a pressure that wasn't just physical. Damien was already moving, his expression darkened as he slid his hand under the table. My stomach twisted. Was he reaching for a weapon? Everything inside me screamed, this is wrong, this is dangerous, I need to get out. The knock came again, this time louder. Damien stood up first. Stay here, he ordered, his voice sharp, not a request, a command. Evelyn followed him, her movements quicker, more calculated. I could barely breathe as I watched them head toward the door. Something was happening. Something I wasn't supposed to see. And that's when I knew this was never about an opportunity. It was about control. And I was trapped. As soon as they disappeared down the hallway, my instincts took over. I had to move. I had to leave, now. My hands trembled as I pushed back my chair. The room felt suffocating, the contract on the table like a noose waiting to tighten around my neck. I didn't look back. I couldn't. My heart pounded as I moved quickly, silently toward the back of the house. There had to be another way out. And then I heard it. Low voices, urgent whispers, the unmistakable tension of something about to explode. I pressed myself against the cold wall, inching forward, my breath shallow. Evelyn's voice, hushed but firm. You weren't supposed to come here. A man's voice responded, equally tense. You shouldn't have brought them into this. Them. I froze. Were they talking about me? Damien's voice was lower, sharper. They already know too much. My pulse skyrocketed. This wasn't just about the contract. This was about me. And whatever I had unknowingly stepped into, they weren't going to let me walk away. I couldn't stay. I had seconds, maybe less. I turned, my feet moving before my mind could catch up. My only focus was escape. The hallway stretched before me, the dim lighting casting long, eerie shadows. I moved quickly, checking doors as I went. Locked, locked, locked. Come on, think. And then the kitchen, a back door. My heart leapt. I darted toward it, hands shaking as I grabbed the handle. I twisted, locked. No, 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 footsteps coming closer. Panic surged through me. I frantically scanned the room. A window, half open. It was my only chance. I didn't hesitate. I climbed onto the counter, shoving the window open as wide as it would go. The cool night air hit my face. Behind me, the footsteps stopped. A voice. Damien's. Low. Cold. Final. You shouldn't have done that. I jumped. The night swallowed me whole as I hit the ground, stumbling before pushing myself forward. The sound of the door bursting open behind me sent adrenaline crashing through my veins. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. All I knew was that if I stopped, I wouldn't get another chance. Branches scratched my skin as I pushed through the darkness. My breath came in ragged gasps. Behind me, voices shouted, but I didn't dare look back. I kept running. I ran until my legs gave out, until the house was nothing but a distant memory, until I was free, or at least I thought I was. Days passed, then weeks. I moved, changed my number, disappeared into the background of a new city, but no matter how far I went, I could still feel them watching. Evelyn, Damien, their offer still lingering in the back of my mind. Because the truth was, you don't escape people like them, not really. You just spend the rest of your life waiting for them to come back,